Hey, I'm Axel, and here, at long last, is our tutorial on how we created the user interface for the iPad in Westworld to Yuma. Let's check it out. As is common with user interfaces, this UI is basically just a combination of several images and graphics, which can be animated individually to create the movement. When it's all happening at once, it might seem a little bit intimidating, but as we break it down into its separate components, you will find that it isn't actually all that difficult. So, we started by designing the final interface in Photoshop, which looks basically like this. And even though the viewers don't really have time to read all of this stuff, if the design was bad, it could be distracting and pull them out of the scene. So taking a little time to create a convincing UI is important. The interaction with the UI is dictated by the scene itself, and needs to harmonize with what the character is saying and trying to accomplish. Josh is trying to shut down the other character, so the warning message that appears over the interface needs to convey that. And he touches the screen here, about a third of the way down and a bit right of center, so we need to make sure our buttons are there. Once we have a rough layout for the interface put together, we will want to drop it in over the footage as a test, just to make sure those buttons are in the right place. That way you can get the layout perfect before you proceed with breaking the UI into component images. Let's move on to the actual animation. Everything is built over the top of this background image, which is specifically sized to match the resolution of the iPad screen that was used in the shot. So let's right-click that image and make composite shot, so our comp will use that same resolution. Name it iPad interface, set its duration to 6 seconds and 8 frames, and click OK. Now, the header remains visible throughout the shot. There's no animation needed there, so let's drag that in over the background. Then add the attributes image and the two matrix images, with matrix blank at the top. Then parent matrix blank to matrix. Parenting this layer means that it will follow matrix wherever we move it, so we only need to animate the position of one layer, and the other will stay perfectly aligned with it. As you will notice, the key here is that each panel is designed to be complete, even if the other panels will overlap it. That allows us to now animate them however we like. Now, if you are wondering, how would I like to animate these? Then listen up, and I will tell you right now. Move the playhead to frame 20 and enable keyframing for the position property of the attributes layer. This is the frame where we want the movement to stop, where it is properly aligned on the screen. Then, move the playhead back to frame 10 and drag the image out of the frame using the red arrow. That creates a new keyframe, and that creates the motion. If you want it to slide in faster, move the keyframes closer together. If you want it to go slower, move the keyframes farther apart. Now, we'll do the same thing for the matrix layer. But this time, create the first keyframe on frame 23, then move back to frame 18 for the second. Notice how the matrix blank image remains perfectly aligned over the main matrix image, which is just what we want. Now we need to fade the blank version out to reveal the filled-in graphs by animating the opacity. Just a few frames after the animation is done, let's say at frame 101, enable keyframing for the opacity of the matrix blank image. Then advance 5 frames to 106 and set opacity to 0. And that takes care of the bulk of the screen. Now to build the profile up at the top. On the left is the dialogue tree, which is comprised of a background image and then the script for the short film. So add dialoguetree.png, then dialogue.png, and then parent dialogue to dialogue tree. Select the rectangular mask tool, then select the dialogue layer and draw a mask the size of the dialogue tree panel. Then, add the profile image as well, and we will animate these all at the same time. We want this profile to come into frame before the lower interface, so move to frame 14 and enable keyframing for the position of the profile and dialogue tree layers. Right-click each of those keyframes and set the temporal interpolation to smooth in. This will smooth the movement as the layer comes into the position stored in that keyframe, so it comes more gently to a stop. Then step back to frame 5 and move each layer until it is off screen. Now we need 3 text layers for the readouts on his profile. So let's select New Layer, Text, and then enter our text, in this case, 60. Set it to 64-point Arial, or another sans serif font, and use the eyedropper to sample the color from the dialog tree label. Then, align the text with the HR, or heart rate label. Shift the layer forward so it starts on frame 10. The little readout on the timeline will indicate when you have moved 10 frames. Then, press Ctrl-D, or Command-D if you're on a Mac, to duplicate the layer, and then move the copy to the right on the viewer to the next readout. Then duplicate again and move this copy to the third readout. Then we will edit them. Change the text in the middle layer to 92 and sample the color from the label for that readout. On the third one, change the value to 40 and sample the color from one of the 3 dots up at the top. Let's rename those layers as well so we can keep track of them. Select any layer and press F2 on Windows or Return on the Mac to edit its name. Then, let's just name them based on their contents, 60, 92, and 40. To add a bit of variation into the numbers, let's use the Slice tool and cut the 60 layer in half, on whatever frame you want, then change the text in the second half to 61. Then rename it as well. Finally, select all 4 of those text layers and parent them to the profile layer. Awesome! Now we just need to animate the interaction as Josh clicks the button and a warning comes up. So first, the activation of the button he clicks, which is this one that says Core. Create a new grade layer for this and trim it so it starts on frame 212 and lasts for 10 frames. Then use the rectangular mask to create a mask on this layer the same size as the button. Increase the feather on the mask to 60, so it's nice and soft, and then we will just brighten up the layer by adding the curves effect, then grabbing the center of the curve and cranking it way up. Rename that layer to Button Glow. Then advance 1 frame to 213 and add the warning image starting at that frame. To make the warning stand out, we want to fade out the rest of the screen, so drag in a new copy of the background image below the warning and starting at the same frame. These blue lines will show you exactly where the layer will drop. Then, on the first frame of the layer, enable keyframing for opacity and set it to 0. Then advance 4 frames and set opacity to 66. Then, on that same frame, which should be frame 217, find the scale property for the warning layer and enable keyframing for it. Then move back to the first frame of that layer and set scale to 0. Bump that layer upward, you'll probably want to scoot forward in time so you can see it again, and bump that layer upward until the warning header lines up with the top of the attributes matrix. Okay, the last thing is when he clicks the Continue button. We will just duplicate the Button Glow layer, then move the copy to the top of our stack and shift it to start at 301. This button is a bit wider though, so let's edit the mask position and shape so it fits the Continue button. Play that back, and the movement is all looking good, but one other last thing is motion blur. To make the movement in this interface feel like it was captured by the same camera that is recording the video, we need some motion blur on it. This is super easy though. Just click the motion blur button here for all the layers that are moving. In fact, we can just select everything from attributes on up and enable motion blur. The few layers that aren't moving won't be affected by it. And there you have it. That is how you animate a user interface. Thanks very much for watching, and I hope you have enjoyed this tutorial. If you want more, please do subscribe, and I'll see you next time.
We hope you enjoyed that Express tutorial. Now, do you fancy going pro and getting 3D model import, particle simulators, and all the other top stuff? Our 4th of July sale is running now, and you can get 15% off everything store-wide, from HitFilm Pro to our bundles to awesome stock packs. That's right, for a few days you can get HitFilm Pro for $296.65 and some other exclusive email offers. But hurry, this sale runs from the 30th of June until the 4th of July 2017. You can get there by clicking this card, which will take you straight to the store.